Welcome, it's Andrew Paskin here. Today's episode is an extremely special episode. We've got an amazing man, a former Kgb Spymaster across several countries, Colonel Mikhail Labimov. He's such a charming guy. He's got some amazing stories and a very funny man. Lived an incredible life. He's 86 years old. Spoke to me from his home in Moscow, and this is a guy that's lived through it all. Like, he survived Stalin's purges, for Christ's sakes. He, went through all the Cold War. He became a big-time author and screenwriter, having a second amazing career. So this guy's just got an incredible life. I hope you enjoy the interview. If you have any complaints about this, as usual, for any ribald language or anything like that, just send your complaints care of the Kremlin and see how far that gets you. Enjoy the interview. Cheers.
All right. I'm at your service, sir.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You're a fascinating man.
Thank you.
Before I get serious with you, I've got a question to ask. How do I become involved in the Russian honeypot operation? Can I come and train with the girls?
You mean me particularly, as a person, or generally speaking?
Me.
Because I was the head of department, so I can't count all girls. But by the way, I suppose in a few days, the Russian TV, it's called RTR, Russian Federation TV, there will be a meeting with me. It is already on record.
Oh, fantastic.
They are editing it.
Great.
And I'm just telling the story how I fucked a CIA girl in detail, my dear. And then you may easily look at the film called, it is an internet, it's easy to get for you. It's called The Soul of a Spy.
It's based on your book, right, Colonel?
Yes, it is just after my book. And there is there, it is shown there, how I fucked this girl. And the main point was that it was under, of course, everything different, recording, gadgets, and you understand me?
Yes.
All this process was under control of the KGB, sure, because it was an operation. The main point was to compromise her. So it's an interesting long story because I enjoy it. I was 22, and the main point was, well, you see, I'm a writer for a long time already, so I like details.
Yes.
So it started with, first of all, we got acquainted. It was very foolish, but convincing somehow, because I just in the morning, I was put into the best hotel in Moscow called Metropole. You've been to Moscow?
I have not, no. I have a friend in St. Petersburg. And
oh, my dear, you missed a lot. What are you doing in your Australia?
I want to come to Moscow. I really do.
It's so, I understand, wonderful land. You see kangaroos around and so on. But so I was put in Metropole as a student, and as a student from Kyiv under another name.
Mm-hmm.
I was dressed in a wonderful white suit. And remember, at that time, it was specially made for me, because at that time it was impossible to buy anything like that in Russia. You know, there was a complete deficit. You don't understand what it is, but I know it.
Well, I was just reading your book with Rafina Philby, where you wrote your essay on Kim Philby and her stories of her.
No, but it's a book of Rafina.
Yeah.
I only made a preface there, but I made about 15 books fiction. But let me finish this story if you want to hear about fucking.
Of course, I want to hear about it.
Look, so when we start all this in a beautiful Lux suit in Metropole, I have forgotten. I didn't know where all the means of photographing are concealed. And I put all my dress on the chair. You understand me?
Yes, yes.
You fuck sometimes, I suppose.
As much as possible.
So it was, a lot of fashion and so on. Well, of course, previously we went to the best Russian painting gallery. Then we had a wonderful lunch in Savoy. It's a wonderful, very good restaurant near Metropole. Then we came to my room, where everything was prepared for this great event. So just when we were at the point, I would say, of this grandiose battle, you see, a telephone rings. Imagine in the process of such an important thing, a telephone rings. So, blah, shit. And I take up the receiver, and a major who was my curator, you understand, who was in charge of the whole operation, he says, just remove the chair. Remove the chair. Imagine, you see, I was a young man, but after that, of course, I removed the chair, but unfortunately, all my masculine abilities failed.
Oh, my God.
At once. Oh, my dear, did you try it? Try it. Ask your Australian police. It's not so easy, because when you feel all the time, you see, the observation, it's psychologically, it's
of course.
A great stress, by the way, about what to do, my dear. What would you do in such a situation?
I'd say let's change rooms.
Well, you can change room, but you see, she said she was horrified. She said, "What's happened, Mike? What's happened?" I said, "I feel a little bit ill. I got some sort of a cold yesterday. Well, I murmured some rubbish."
Yeah.
Anyway, we parted. She went into another room because we were in the same corridor in Metropole. But she went into her room. It was far away, and I was shocked. I thought that all my life is destroyed. I thought that I would never marry. I was unmarried at the time.
Yeah.
I thought that this disease, this impotence is eternal. And next morning, the first time, what I did, I went to a doctor who was in Moscow. There were some private doctors, and it was written sometimes on the walls at the center of Moscow that the doctor of the name, well, a doctor of syphilis, venereal, and other sexual diseases.
Yeah.
You understand me?
Yes, yes.
You know what syphilis is?
I do.
Good. Never experienced it?
I've never had it. I think Al Capone had it.
I think you have no syphilis in Australia. No, we have neither. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, my dear, an old Jew. Imagine, an old Jew. You see, so this is rubbish." I told him that, "My dear doctor, tomorrow I have to meet my bride. I'm going to marry, and you understand what I'm an impotent, and so on and so on." This is rubbish, my dear," he said. Well, he just made me an injection, took a big sum of money for this.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went out, it was a big square in the center of Moscow. I was eager to fuck everybody who was there.
Well, I don't think you were impotent, Colonel. I think it's easier to do it without Czechist agents watching you.
Well, you've never seen KGB agents, by the way. Therefore, it's your information. Therefore, let's not discuss it. But let me proceed.
Yes.
This is not the end. This is only the start.
Go.
Because so next time we repeat the whole operation.
Yep.
Again, I take her to this wonderful restaurant in the center of Moscow, in Savoy. It's called Savoy, with the mirrors as ceiling, and let's dance. Everybody looking at this wonderful couple, and this young man with a white suit on, a striking white suit. Well, you can't imagine how wonderful it was. So after the restaurant, we go back to the hotel, to my room, and I prepared already everything. And imagine, at that time, it was somewhere in 58, last century, not the previous century. Just after, then I just decided somehow to make more gay and receptive. It was in vogue at that time with us young men to, if you want to fuck a girl previously, you prepare her with a mixture of strong brandy, half champagne. It was called white beer.
Yeah.
So put a big glass of half brandy, good brandy, and half champagne, just a mixture. After that, you see, she is yours. So I did it. And then she drank it with great pleasure. It was really, try it. By the way, it's a very nice drink. Do you drink?
Yeah, too much.
You drink too much, what it means in your Australian terms, too much?
Drunk.
What label of scotch you prefer?
Glenfiddich.
Glenfiddich?
Yeah, 12 years. Nice one.
Well, it is very good. Well, congratulations, you are good. Of course, I like it with water, English style.
Yes.
Well, I don't like straight. Don't like it. But, all right, let's proceed.
Yes.
So, and she drank it and runs into the bathroom. And I hear, and so on. After that, he gets out and runs into her room. And I'm left alone with my standing dick. Imagine how awful it is. What would you do? I ran after her.
Of course.
And entered the room. And you imagine at that time, all Soviet hotels were guarded by the agents of the KGB. But when we say agents, it doesn't mean that they were KGB, they worked in the KGB. They were just recruited for certain purposes, different sweep, people who sweep there, who worked, and they were sitting in the corridor. And when I went, I saw that everybody started to inform the KGB somewhere that, oh, he is running into her room. When I found myself in her room and embraced her, well, suddenly there was a knock on the door, and some woman said, I want to change the flowers in the room, and some rubbish. So, but I fucked her, and there was nothing, no recording over there at all.
Perfect.
And next morning I asked my operational chief. He said, oh, that's all right, because for us it's not necessary to have, you see, the whole process when you put your dick into vulva, you know. It's enough to have the fact that you are in bed with her. And it happened the previous night. So this is my operation, which I'm very proud of it, and it will be shown to the Soviet people, Russian people. I think that maybe in a week or so.
Wonderful.
Well, we just record it.
That is the most amazing story, Colonel.
Only put it normally in paper, because just to make people laugh.
Too funny.
Because it's a nice operation. And I remember she said, "Oh, this is what we all students like." You see?
Well, let me ask you this. Was she more beautiful than Russian girls? Because Russian girls are beautiful.
Wow. Never generalize. There are beautiful American girls. And, well, I prefer Russian girls. I like Russian girls because they speak Russian, first of all. And simply, I'm married 3 times. Wonderful women. 2 were actresses. And, of course, there were actresses in between. Well, beauties, I mean.
Yeah.
So you see, but I can't generalize. So who are better Russians? It depends because I love. When I love, it makes no difference to me at all.
So in your own country, you're known as an author now. Is that correct?
Yes, completely. I produced by now about 15 books. You see, and I'm on the TV quite often. I collaborate actively in the Central Russian papers and write on many things, particularly on intelligence services, MI6, MI5, KGB. So I never wrote on Australian service, though we had some of some results in your country.
The Australian service is called ASIO, ASIO. Weren't you the boss of Anglo-Scandinavian operations? So you had Australia under your control in the 60s, right?
No, in Scandinavia, we had nothing to do with Australia, but when I was a chief of the English department, Australia was also included into it as our point of observation, and New Zealand. Of course, Australia was never considered as some main point. We were concentrating our efforts on the US and NATO. Yes. But Australia was something, well, far away, too far away.
Well, it's funny because in the 60s, Australia had a couple of Soviet defectors come here to hide.
I don't remember. I know that we had some man there, and then he was arrested. This name is well known, but it was when I was already in Scandinavia.
I see.
I was there. I didn't know this case at all because, we had a good secretiveness in the KGB. It was 100% secret.
Now, I think you and I share a disdain for the English upper class. I used to live in London for a couple of years. I lived in West London, and I found the English wealthy people to be very obnoxious. And when you were the head of the English division for your KGB department, you were posing as a press attaché. Is that correct?
Well, I was a press attaché, that's right. Actually, I consider my life and my work in England. At that time, I was a young lieutenant senior.
Mm.
You understand the rank. You have ranks in your army, or
yeah.
So a young lieutenant senior, and I worked at the embassy, and I can't say that my disdain of course, first I came with because I never knew the life in England. I had something like a foolish disdain. For instance, I looked when I was walking in Hyde Park and saw the maids with the carriage of children. You see, they serve the rich who are now eating their lobsters in the best clubs of London, something like this. But I was very young at the time, and then I must say that I came to love England. I had contacts at the very high of the British upper class, including people like, you remember Prime Minister Wilson?
Yes.
You see, there was the main ideologist who was a head of the section of psychological war department in the SOE, SOE. You know, SOE in England during the war, but you were not even planned at the day.
Yeah.
Well, and he was a chief of that. A very important man in the Labour Party. I was friendly with Dennis Healy, late, a very clever man. He was Minister of Defense. Of course, in the 30s, he was a member of the Komsomol League, if you know what it is. It's a Communist Party youth organization of Great Britain. Well, and many other people. So my wife was actress, and we had access to many circles where we met, for instance, Graham Greene. I suppose you know this English author.
Yes.
A great English author, Graham Greene, Alan Sillitoe, then, a lot of journalists, of course. I was a press attaché, knew all the journalists there from all the papers. Well, and a friend of mine was editor-in-chief of Sunday Telegraph.
Wow.
So, and then I was very active, and therefore was kicked out of England. Well, never be inactive when you be recruited by your Australian intelligence service, if you have any.
You don't have to fear, Colonel. They will never recruit me. I'm too unreliable. But
you see, many people are unreliable for work in the Secret Services. But I say that if you are taken into your Secret Service and sent abroad, but I suppose you Australians don't have Secret Service abroad. Maybe one man sitting there, supervising, collecting intelligence for the Australian government. Isn't it like that?
Yeah, it'd be like a man and a dog. That's what it would be.
But I was young, very romantic. I wanted to recruit the chief of the cipher department of the Foreign Office, and I met him. And therefore I burnt myself, my dear, and was kicked out from Great Britain in 65.
After you were burnt, were you fearful of being jailed, or did you have diplomatic immunity?
How can I be jailed? I was the second secretary of the Russian embassy.
Excellent.
It's impossible to jail a diplomat. No, they tried to recruit me. So once I went with this man. His name was Ivor Vincent, a very nice man. He was a chief of Cheltenham,
right?
Actually. You know what Cheltenham is?
Yes.
Near London. No. All the communications are there. So he was a chief of the communications department of the Foreign Office of Great Britain. So if I succeeded in recruiting him, we could easily close down all our residenturas or our intelligence stations. You understand what communications of Great Britain, if you have it in your hands, all the communications, you have all the information actually, right?
Yeah.
With this man, very charming. I like him very much, and we had good relations. And we, just after we met somewhere, I don't remember now exactly, at some lecture. There were lectures at the time, very popular lectures. I myself made lectures, and people gathered there to listen to some professor and some. So we met there and went to have a drink into a pub of High Kent. You understand when they say High Kensington Street? Kensington Street, our embassy was not very far there. And he said, excuse Mike, just a moment, I go to wash my hands. Well, he went off, and suddenly I saw two people near to me. And I can't say that I was impressed by them, because in my imagination, the British Secret Service people were sort of high class, high brows, like Colonel Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
I thought they are well educated and so on. But one man was looking like a seller at a market somewhere, something with a.
Yeah.
Another was smelling of fried potatoes. And so impression was not very good. Still, we had the instructions in such emergency situation to say it's a provocation and so on and so forth. And they said that your career is over. You understand? And started to recruit me. Of course, I stood up and went off, and this is all. And then the diplomatic affairs started because there was an exchange of memorandums, some papers declassified. You may find the Lyubimov case, and very funny in the foreign affairs publications.
Yeah, right.
Of course, I was ordered to stop all my activities. We wanted to prolong my stay because when our ambassador came to protest over the provocation against the innocent Mikhail Labimov, you see, the foreign minister, Mr. Gordon Walker, said, "Oh no, you see, I'm sorry, Ambassador, but Mr. Labimov is not as innocent as you say. He is involved in the unlawful activity, and therefore, sorry, but he has to leave Great Britain." But he didn't say when. Therefore, for 2 months, my wife and myself enjoyed the life. I didn't work, actually. We went to British Museum, to all theaters, you see, and exhibitions, and it was a great time. And then the British reminded us that we have to leave, and we left. That was the end of my British career. After that, after Perestroika, I've been there many times. But for instance, last year I was there. I'm greatly disappointed because it changed so greatly. Yeah. Because in my time there was bowler hats, wonderful people, and now some grey crowd is running there. I'm sorry to say. So it's not my England. This is the point. But I suppose this is normal for any person. When you become old, you like the past. Because in the past you were young, you were energetic, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel it the same way you do at my age.
I don't understand the world anymore, you see. But I'm 86, my dear. It's something.
And you're still full of life. I love it. But can I ask you a question about England? When you were there in 61 to 64, were you in contact with Burgess and Philby and those guys?
Philby came to Russia in 63, and I met Philby many times. I worked with him here in Moscow already when I was chief of the British department. We met with him and drank scotch, by the way, good scotch, and discussed operational affairs at a special apartment and at his home sometimes. And his wife, Rufina, whose book you read, made us wonderful dishes because she's very good at preparing some meal. And I think that Philby was a great man. And actually, he wanted another Great Britain. He was anti-fascist. And, you see, and helped us during the war and after the war. So it was a man who even by Allen Dulles, who was the CIA chief, is considered one of the greatest spies in the world. He was a great spy dedicated to the communist cause, which was very popular at the time. It was shared by many great people, by writers and scientists.
Well, the question I had for you was regarding Nicholas Elliott, Kim Philby's great friend of 30 years, and he had no idea he was a spy for the Soviet Union until the very end, he claims. Now, did the KGB find the English MI6 to be incompetent regarding all this?
You see, you can't speak this way to any intelligence service. In some cases, they were incompetent. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, they were very competent. But you see, I don't belong to the people who start to compare the services. You can't compare the intelligence services because nobody knows. No, somebody maybe knows more or less. But what we know about MI6? We know very little. What do you know about the KGB? Also very little.
Yeah.
How can you compare the effectiveness of the services? We can only look at some particular cases, for instance. We were great at the Cambridge Five, but we were very bad at Gordievsky, for instance, Failer, who defected. He was my deputy in Denmark, Oleg Gordievsky.
So how did you feel when you learnt of that situation? Did you have your suspicions about Gordievsky?
How can you have a suspicion? Imagine that you are a chief. Gordievsky was a professional spy by that time when I arrived in Copenhagen. And vice versa, he tried to do everything he could in order to convince me that he is very loyal. He was not a fool, by the way. Do you think that he took secret documents out or something like this? No. He was very loyal, very good communist, and therefore no suspicion was made. Of course, when he ran away, and it was, by the way, a good operation of the MI6, maybe one of their best operations. So after that, everybody started to say, oh, I know that he is bad, and so, but this is rubbish.
Right.
You can't, you see, this is not normal.
Colonel, how did you feel when you found out? Was it like a personal betrayal as well, or did you just feel it's a political betrayal?
Of course, I think him a traitor, and it was both a personal betrayal and it was a betrayal of my country. Because now some people try to show him as a man who saved the world and prevented the nuclear war, and so much rubbish is created and for propaganda purposes, unfortunately, by the British. But in fact, he betrayed a lot. He betrayed a few of our illegals, because formerly he was connected to the illegal service, and these people were arrested and tortured, by the way, One man who was then returned to Russia died quite recently. He was caught in South Africa at the time of apartheid, even long ago. But still, he was betrayed by Gordievsky. And a few more. But this is the most important betrayals he made. At that time, unfortunately, in London, we were very weak. And already we had no people like Philby, Guy Burgess. We had no agents of such caliber. Alas. So, well, he betrayed one MI5 man who wanted to collaborate with us, came to the embassy, but of course Gordievsky betrayed him at once to his own service. Bettany is his name, and he already is released from jail, I suppose. But you see, he was not recruited because Gordievsky at once made it known to the MI5.
It's really fascinating as an observer. Here's you handling the biggest English defector who himself, condemned a few people to death in the hundreds, Albanians, etc. And then it happened to you. It's like, I was really interested to hear your perspective on the other side of the coin type of thing, So when Philby was spirited away from Lebanon in 1963, the rumors are that Nicholas Elliott and Dick White of MI6 made it obvious that he was to escape rather than go back to England and embarrass the SIS. Do you think that was the case?
Well, see, I never spoke. By the way, it's not interesting for me. Though I met Kim many times, we never discussed his meetings with Elliot. It is clear that he considers himself to be a man, a Comintern man, actually, a man who is dedicated to the communist cause. And therefore collaborates with our intelligence. And of course he considered Elliot as just played with him. So look at everything which is written by Elliot in the light of Kim's eyes, and in his eyes. Well, actually he played all the time. And all this, his consent, and I agreed that I spied and I would come to Britain. All this is trash. Well, it's not serious. It's a play. And actually, at once he made it known that his approach, and we decided, because already we had another traitors, Golitsyn at the time, and there were traitors all the time in the KGB, and alas. And we decided to take him back to Russia. And he was put, there was an operation, he was specially put on our boat, which was there, and he drank his last scotch in Normandy bar. I remember there is Normandy bar near his home. Left his wife alien home and went aboard and found himself in Russia. It was not so easy for him to adapt himself because of deficit of food, of drinks. Actually, to live for a foreigner living in another country without the knowledge of the native language, I can't understand how somebody does it. But it's an ordeal, actually. First he drank a lot, I remember. Well, but then he stabilized because he had everything there, because he had a wonderful flat. We offered him a a cottage outside. He said, no, I don't like it. You want a car? No, I don't like it. It was a man for him with the private property and the personal belongings mean absolutely nothing. For him, it was most important. It was books. And I remember his study in his flat in Tregorny by Street. It's in the center of Moscow. Now Rufa lives there, his widow. And so many books many books from English history. You see, many British classics. He tried to read the Russian classics too. He liked Tolstoy. It was an intellectual, and he didn't work for money. As perhaps you know, during the war, Comrade Stalin decided to give pensions for all the Cambridge Five. It's because they worked for nothing. And they rejected this proposal. They said that, you see, we don't need the pensions because we work for our cause. They were Comintern. They wanted new, happy society. Unfortunately, it didn't come true, neither in Russia nor in Britain. But this is a tragedy of their generation.
Well, as a final question, Colonel, I'd like to ask you, it's a serious one actually. You considered yourself a Bolshevik, and then you worked under Stalin, and then worked under Khrushchev and Brezhnev, and then you saw the perestroika and disintegration of the Soviet Union. Are you sad that communism has failed, or do you think it's better to go into the future with the capitalist system?
Well, to tell you frankly, first of all, it's clear, I've never been under Stalin. I never worked under Stalin. I was a student there, and I'm a confirmed anti-Stalinist. And of course, your listeners do not know that, for instance, after Stalin died, there was a great purge of the KGB, and people who were involved in massive shootings and all this, all of them were shot, you see, and the KGB was purged. And I came on the wave of anti-Stalinist move in the Communist Party, which was very strong. There was special decision, perhaps you know, of the 20th Congress. Well, and of course I was a communist, but you see, I think for us, communism didn't mean that we wanted to export revolution to England or to Australia. For us, communism meant justice, social justice. You see, it was understood by most. I don't know anybody who would say, oh, Michael, we would. For us, already there were no killings, no murders, like it was under Stalin. Particularly the murder of Trotsky is well known. And you see, for us, in my time, I don't remember even attempts to detain the people by force, like happened in Australia, by the way, when There was a couple, Petrov.
That's maybe you. Yeah.
Petrov. It was in the 50s after the death of Stalin, and Yevdokey Petrov stayed in Australia, but Yevdokey tried to run away at the airport, and two big men from KGB, suppose, or maybe not, simply they accompanied her. They tried to detain her, and the Australian police interfered, and she was freed, and so on. Nothing like this happened in my time. Of course, we were against dissidents, and we stayed for the unity of the Soviet Union and fought our opponents, the Americans, first of all, the NATO, and so on. But I don't think it's our fault. And now, of course, I supported Gorbachev and the whole perestroika. I can't say that I'm a great supporter of the present-day capitalism in Russia, because it's very primitive and so many robbers now and thieves, you see, and we're surrounded by thieves and thieves. First of all, don't think that people would never try to create some new society. The present society is not ideal. Even Sir Winston Churchill, if you remember, said that democracy is one of the worst forms of government among the others. You remember this?
Yes.
You never considered it to be an ideal form of government. The best of the worst, I would say, maybe. But of course, one day people appear who would try to create something new. Because I don't like when some people live very poorly and some people have yachts and private planes and so on. I don't think it's abnormal. I don't like when the businessmen are in charge of the country, like in the US, for instance. And when money rules the world, money can't be the motivation in life. Money is the means, not the aim. But I'm old enough to become a great revolutionary and a new Che Guevara. Alas, not. You see?
Well, that's a wonderful way to end the interview, sir. Thank you so much for your generous, spending an hour with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you have some experience in Secret Service?
No.
Agent of the Secret Service? No, not yet.
I'm the worst ever potential agent because of excessive gambling and drinking.